Now that we're actually here at the start of the 2023 NFL season, we've gone through training camp, we've gone through preseason, and now we have a better understanding of this rookie class prior to them actually producing on the field. So, one last time, here are my updated top 25 overall rookie rankings and tiers in Dynasty Superflex leagues. To kick things off, I'm just going to be completely honest. Nothing has changed inside my top 7 overall. It's the same 7 players in the same exact orders it was 4 months ago after the NFL draft. Nothing has changed with that, so we're just going to leave it with that and skip the first 7 overall because nothing's changed. So let's start at 8 overall. Still in this tier of players right after Jordan Addison, we have Quentin Johnston, which is actually still the same ranking that I had him at after the NFL draft. So again, nothing has changed for Johnston positively or negatively. The one interesting part about him in the short term is that he's opening up the season as the Chargers wide receiver 4 behind Josh Palmer, which was not the expectation after he was drafted in the first round this year. Now, clearly by me ranking him as 8th overall as my wide receiver 3, I don't have any concerns about that for Johnston's future outlook. It's just an initial speed bump that he has to get over for probably a couple weeks, and then he'll be good for the rest of the year. With that being said, though, Johnston is still the one guy in my top 11 that I just can't bring myself to actually draft because I had a handful of issues with him coming out of college. And again, nothing's really changed for me because of those concerns. I did have these same feelings about Jalen Waddle in 2021 and then Jameson Williams last year, so take that hit rate as you will, but Johnston remains my wide receiver 3 as a high ceiling, prototypical wide receiver 1 profile in an offensive situation that he should be able to find success in if he's the guy that we actually believe that he can be. Now at 9th overall, still in this same tier, is Zay Flowers. And again, this is no different than where I've had him all summer. But what I do think is interesting is that I've noticed people don't view Flowers in the same tier as Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston like I do. I find that actually really strange. Flowers is a first-round wide receiver with a 19-year-old breakout age, a 33% career dominator rating, really good yards per team pass attempt numbers, great athleticism, amazing film, and even landed in a situation where he can immediately be the wide receiver 1 on what should be a more pass-focused offense with a top 10 quarterback in the league. Yet, we don't view him the same way that we view Addison and Johnston? Why? He actually grades out as the wide receiver 3 in this class ahead of Jordan Addison in my marker system, and that's accounting for him being a whole year older than the other 3 first-round receivers as a non-early declared receiver. So while I do still rank him as the wide receiver 4 in this class overall, I am just as happy to land him as I am Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston. Moving to 10 and 11 overall, and the only 2 players in the 5th tier of rookies here, I go back and forth almost every single day between these 2, but as of today, I have Dalton Kincaid ahead of Zach Charbonnet strictly because of the upside of the positional advantage at tight end. I firmly believe that Kincaid can be a top 5 fantasy tight end in 2023. He landed in a great spot to be what we want Kyle Pitts to be in Atlanta, except Buffalo actually throws the ball. Now, I'm not saying that Kincaid is the same level of prospect or athlete that Pitts was and is, not at all, but situationally, Kincaid is getting a boost because of the offense that he's in and the projected volume that he could and should receive. So because of that upside, I have him over Zach Charbonnet because a top 5 tight end is more valuable than a top 24 running back. But let's not rain on Zach Charbonnet's parade either. He is a really good running back. It's just so unfortunate that he landed on a team with another really good running back. I honestly can't tell you what this backfield split is going to look like with both Walker and Charbonnet healthy. And of course, if one of them gets hurt, the other one is automatically a top 10 guy. But I'm not here to predict injuries or future trades or anything like that. So under the assumption that Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are both healthy and in the same backfield together until 2026 at the earliest, that really limits Zach Charbonnet's upside, and that's why I would take Kincaid over him right now. But I do still love having Zach Charbonnet on my Dynasty team, and he's definitely a tier above everybody else after him after this. All right, so now we get into the fun part because there has been a lot of shuffling happening after these top 11, and while we're still technically in the first round at the 112 overall at the top of this tier, all of these guys really are just second round picks. And if you can sell any of them right now for a random 2024 first, I'd be doing that in a heartbeat. But getting into the actual players of this tier, at the very top of tier 6, we have Achane, the 3rd round rookie that got the best landing spot after Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. And what separates Achane from the rest of the guys that he's at the top of this tier is strictly upside. He has the opportunity to climb the Dolphins depth chart right now, especially with Jeff Wilson already on IR. And I know everybody else is basically just waiting for Raheem Mostert to join him here too. So opportunity is great for Devon Achane. And on top of that, just the type of player that he is, an electrifying player with 4.32 speed and a really, really good receiving profile as well. Everything just fits so nicely for Devon Achane in this Dolphins offense that if he gets the ability to see 200 plus carries, another 40 plus receptions, he can have Tony Pollard type of production. I'm not worried about the shoulder injury. He may miss a game or two to start the year, whatever. His opportunity is still going to be there when he's fully healthy, and this Dolphins offense is going to look really, really good with Devon Achane at running back. At 13 overall, we have Marvin Mims, who honestly has not climbed because of anything that he's done specifically. It's more about the immediate opportunity that he has right now that Jerry Jeudy is sidelined with a hamstring injury. And when you combine that immediate opportunity with the skill set that Mims brings to this offense and Russell Wilson specifically, then we're about to see some magic. Mims graded out actually as the wide receiver 6 in my marker system after the NFL draft as a second-round wide receiver with an 18-year-old 20% breakout age, sub 4.4 speed, and a near 40-inch vertical. He is a really good wide receiver paired with who I hope can return to being a very good quarterback in an offense that has produced very good fantasy players back in New Orleans. It's all there for Marvin Mims immediately in year one. He just has to go out and get it. Moving over to 14th overall, another player who's up here based on immediate opportunity, it's Sam LaPorta. He has a phenomenal chance to become a top 10 fantasy tight end as early as week 1, honestly. He's been the Lions tight end 1 all summer long, and as far as receiving weapons go, it's Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Sam LaPorta in this Lions offense. DJ Chark is in Carolina, Jameson Williams is suspended for 6 games, and then it's Josh Reynolds, Marvin Jones, and Khalif Raymond. In a very similar depth chart situation last year, we saw TJ Hawkinson average 6 targets per game before he got traded to Minnesota, and if LaPorta sees that kind of volume immediately, he's honestly closer to tight end 5 than he is tight end 10. We're going to be talking about him like we do Pat Freiermuth, Dallas Goedert, and maybe even ahead of Dalton Kincaid as a tight end 1 in this rookie class. Next up is actually a player that has climbed because of what he's been doing in the preseason, and that is Tank Bigsby. He has asserted himself as the RB1B in this Jaguars offense as the perfect complement to Travis Etienne and should offer solid standalone value when Etienne is healthy, similar to guys like A.J. Dillon, Ezekiel Elliott last year with Tony Pollard, Jamal Williams basically just with fewer touchdowns. Those kind of guys is what Tank Bigsby can become. But the amazing thing about Tank is that he has 3-down workhorse ability if Etienne ever got hurt because he can do everything really well. He's really good between the tackles. He's a good receiver. He's a good pass blocker. He is a jack of all trades with enough power, size, and explosiveness to do it all anywhere on the field. So he is a handcuff plus in that he has standalone value with Etienne, but also if Etienne were to get hurt, to the moon for Tank Bigsby. In a similar vein to Tank Bigsby, we move to my RB6 in this class now, Kendre Miller. It was a slight dip down from where I had him immediately after the NFL draft. And really what's caused this small bump down is honestly just the injuries that he's been racking up all summer. He came into the offseason still recovering from his MCL sprain back in December in college. Then he sprained his patella in the middle of August that he had to deal with. And now he's dealing with a hamstring injury that's potentially causing him to miss week 1. And what's even more frustrating is that Miller has looked solid in the preseason, making that highlight reel diving catch on the sideline in one game, reeling in 6 more receptions in his 3 games played. And while his rushing efficiency hasn't necessarily been the greatest, he's averaging less than 2 yards per carry in the preseason, we are seeing still the receiving upside that could be like the next Ramondre Stevenson and potentially passing the torch from Alvin Kamara over to Kendre Miller. And that kind of upside is immaculate in this New Orleans Saints offense. It's just Miller just hasn't been able to stay healthy as of right now. And if he can't stay healthy, that opportunity is going to slip away pretty quickly. So he moves down to my RB6, but he's still in this same tier as Devon Achane and Tank Bigsby. Moving down to tier 7, at the top of this tier is Jonathan Mingo. And really, he himself hasn't moved at all in my ranking because nothing's changed with his profile. We knew when he was drafted that he would make an immediate impact and have an opportunity to make an impact in this really weak Panthers receiving room. And that has happened in the preseason, running a ton of routes with the ones and with Bryce Young. The reasons why I'm skeptical, though, are all still the same reasons that I was skeptical before the NFL draft. He's a very raw wide receiver. He's not an amazing route runner, and he just relies on his uber athleticism to win as a wide receiver. I questioned how that would translate to the NFL level, and if preseason is any indication, it hasn't yet, because even though he's been running all of these routes, it's only translated to just 2 receptions. He's been outproduced by Adam Thielen. He'll probably be outproduced by DJ Chark when he returns from injury. And Mingo, honestly, is setting himself up to be Terrace Marshall 2.0 in this Panthers offense. But we have to keep him here because he does have that opportunity, and maybe he grows into this role in Carolina and was a very highly drafted wide receiver in the second round of the NFL draft. So we got to keep him here. After Jonathan Mingo, we get our rookie tight end 3, Michael Mayer, who has had probably the quietest training camp and preseason that I've ever seen from a highly drafted rookie. I saw like one training camp clip from him in July, and then that was basically it. He had only 3 receptions in 2 preseason games. He had some really good pass and run blocking reps, and that was it. And I think that just comes with the fact that Mayer was the most complete tight end prospect in this class, but he was not the most athletic one. He's an excellent blocker. He's a solid chain moving receiver. He's really good in the red zone as well. But that description just feels a lot like a lot of the other tight ends in the NFL and not so much like the elite guys for fantasy football that we care about who catch like 70 plus receptions a season and are utilized more as weapons than an extra lineman on the offensive line. And I think Mayer can be a really good NFL tight end who plays a ton of snaps, and that should translate to back-end tight end 1 numbers more often than not. But it will take some time to carve out a receiving role in this Raiders offense that Dalton Kincaid and Sam LaPorta just don't have to worry about right now. Plus, both of them are way more athletic than Michael Mayer. So that's why they're both ahead of him as rookies, and that's why he's my tight end 3 down here in this tier. Touching on a running back now in this tier is my RB7 Roschon Johnson, who I still have very high hopes for, but he's in a tier behind Bigsby and Miller because his opportunity is going to come at a much slower pace. Yes, he's already carved out the 3rd down role for the Bears with Khalil Herbert as the 2-down back, but Herbert is a very good rusher, and in order to realize his ultimate potential, Roschon needs to beat him out as well to become more of what Tank Bigsby and Kendre Miller are already well on their way to become. I do 100% believe that Roschon does get there. I've been saying that like all offseason, that I think he becomes the new David Montgomery in this Bears offense, and Herbert is relegated back to his role when David Montgomery was there. But when that switch actually happens, I'm not totally sure. It could be October, it could be December at the end of the year, it could even be 2024 at this point. So Roschon finds himself a tier behind the other running backs, but could climb his way up quickly if he does find that opportunity. Moving back to wide receiver now is my wide receiver 7, Jayden Reed, and this one feels like a really low ranking for another 2nd round receiver who's going to have immediate opportunity to start in this Packers offense. He's in the same tier as Jonathan Mingo, but what pushes Reed down a little bit is the type of player that he is versus Jonathan Mingo. Mingo is just a high upside, uber athletic, prototypical wide receiver 1. That is Jonathan Mingo's ceiling. Reed's ceiling is Emmanuel Sanders, Randall Cobb 2.0 in Green Bay, both of whom were very good in specific situations. Don't get me wrong, Cobb was excellent with Aaron Rodgers. Emmanuel Sanders was excellent with Peyton Manning. And you see what I'm kind of getting at here? You remove the first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and both Sanders and Randall Cobb were just fine wide receivers. They were top 30 fantasy guys, top 20 with some touchdown luck, but that's basically it when they didn't have elite of the elite quarterbacks throwing the ball to them. And Jordan Love, at least right now, is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. So where does that leave Jayden Reed, and what is his ultimate upside? Not to mention the fact that he's already 23 years old. He turns 24 next spring already, and I just don't see a high upside and highly valued player here long term, but I do like the immediate opportunity. So I like where he's at ultimately right here in my rankings in this tier. Sticking with wide receiver is my wide receiver 8, Rashee Rice. And Rice to me is basically just Jonathan Mingo, just in a better offense with a much better quarterback, but without the opportunity. This really does feel like Sky Moore 2.0, and the jury is still out on if Moore barely played last year because that's what Andy Reid wanted him to do as a rookie, or because he isn't as good as what he thought he was. Rice has immense upside because of his size and athleticism. He actually graded out as the wide receiver 5 in my marker system because of that athletic and production profile at SMU, but he's still a super raw player. His production came against lesser talent in the AAC, and heading into 2023, he's behind Sky Moore, MVS, Kadarius Toney when he returns, and possibly even Justin Watson and or even Richie James. And all of those guys are behind Travis Kelce as well. So 2023 is probably just going to be like a big donut for Rashee Rice, but I can't just remove him because he was a 2nd round pick to a fantastic situation with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Next up is Titans running back Tyjae Spears, and to me, this is really the first handcuff running back pick in these rankings. I definitely do think that Spears could have some sort of a role as the RB2 behind Derrick Henry, but come on, I mean, when given the choice to give the ball to Derrick Henry or Tyjae Spears, you give the ball to Derrick Henry. So Spears to me is strictly a handcuff, but he is a very good handcuff. He's up there with Elijah Mitchell, Tyler Algier, Jaylen Warren, so he deserves to be ranked here as a back-end second-round rookie pick in this class. But Spears does offer some unknown in that he could have standalone value with Derrick Henry and also could maybe be in line to take the reins should Derrick Henry be traded all this year or allowed to walk in free agency next offseason, that the other handcuffs that I just mentioned just don't have behind guys like Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson and Najee Harris. So I really like Tyjae Spears, but I don't expect the same level of production as the other rookie running backs that we've already mentioned, especially in year one. All right, this is Superflex rookie ranking, so I have to talk about Will Levis at some point in this video, and I think this is where he fits in. I get why people would want to have Levis higher in Superflex because he is a quarterback. He was drafted highly in the second round in the NFL, and he is behind a quarterback that could be on his way out in Tennessee. So he was just like auto drafted as the 112, 201 in a lot of rookie drafts all summer. But just because he's a quarterback doesn't mean his value should be so high. He hasn't even won the backup job in Tennessee yet. He's still fighting for it to this day with Malik Willis, and we're less than a week away from their first game. I've also been of the opinion that Ryan Tannehill is not so easily getting replaced this year. He's a very solid quarterback who, prior to getting hurt last year, has thrown for over 3,700 yards in 2 straight years and threw for 33 touchdowns back in 2020. Now he has the best wide receiver room he's ever had with DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, and Chig Okonkwo, plus Derrick Henry still there, and I don't expect Ryan Tannehill to just suck so badly that they have to throw Will Levis in just to see what they have in him. There's honestly a world where Levis isn't even the QB4 in this class. It could be Aiden O'Connell with how well he's played in the preseason. I'm done auto-ranking Will Levis as a top 15 Superflex just because he's a quarterback, and I think you guys should as well. Now, coming in at 24 overall, we go back to the tight end position with Luke Musgrave of the Green Bay Packers, and Musgrave has looked phenomenal in the preseason and has already been named the Packers tight end 1 for the 2023 season. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he vaults Michael Mayer as a tight end 3 in this class by as early as like the end of this month, because Musgrave is exactly the type of tight end that we want in fantasy. He's huge, he's very athletic, he has the draft capital as a top 50 overall pick in the NFL draft, and now he seems to have the immediate opportunity to make an impact on day one. We honestly could look back at this ranking in a few weeks and say that we were still too low on Luke Musgrave. So if you're looking to acquire him, but you're worried that you might be buying high right now, his price may honestly double in a month. So any price that you're willing to pay now might honestly look like an underpay in a month or two. And to close out our top 25, we have Giants wide receiver Jalin Hyatt. And again, this is strictly upside because Hyatt is a highly athletic 4.4 speed threat that the Giants will use to stretch his field. And if he grows into more of a refined route tree, he could be a really good fantasy asset, just like what Deshaun Jackson kind of grew into. Measurable wise, he's not that dissimilar from Marvin Mims and even guys like Garrett Wilson and Jahan Dotson from last year's class. Now, I'm not saying that those are his direct comps, but measurable wise, he fits in with other successful or who we believe should be successful wide receivers in the NFL right now. It'll just come down to Hyatt's personal growth as a wide receiver to become more than just a 9-route run down the field kind of guy. And he has a fantastic opportunity to do that in New York and separate himself from a weak receiving room with a bunch of small slot guys and then Darius Slayton and Isaiah Hodgins. So we'll see if he can develop or not, and that uncertainty lands him here at 3.01 and the last player in this final tier. But hey, while you guys are here and you're gearing up for the start of week 1 and the excitement of a new fantasy football season, make sure that you guys have checked out Justin's video on 5 moves that you should be making before games start this weekend, which you can watch right up here.